Okay, hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who will find this recording somehow in the abyss called YouTube, week 4 report of making cinematic based on a Freelancer video game from 2003. This particular one would be in English, just for my amusement, mainly. No, I'm just kidding. For the test purposes, so that I can compare the reach worldwide. And the general feedback. Maybe more people will be engaged into communication, maybe not, we'll see. Previous ones were like 90% Russian, although it does seem simpler for me to do that. Just to challenge myself more, I think that will be much more fascinating. Nevertheless, week 4, I'll need to brief you guys on what's been done so far. Just as a reminder, the way that I call it, like week 2 report, week 3, week 4, doesn't necessarily mean that I spend the whole week doing something towards making this cinematic. It's just the means of, gradually reporting the progress. So I might not necessarily do it like 8 hours a day every day. It's just sometimes I have 3 hours a day spending this. Sometimes it's about, I don't know, 30 minutes maybe. But still, I try to do some sort of a reasonable and sensible progress between every episode, so to speak. So that's that. Let's go through the stuff that's been done. Although I don't have the image. Oh, maybe I do. Wait a second. Yeah, I didn't prepare for this one. But anyway, you can just compare the images and the recordings. So mainly I worked, as you probably noticed, on the central piece of this whole space station. And therefore it's much more, well, has a little more detail than before. Mainly I added a whole bunch of extruded sides that I used to make with the, my asset that I presented last time. This like Death Star-esque, texture to it. And then I start putting lights where it should be. Well, sensible amounts, so not so it's look like Christmas tree, but even though, Merry Christmas and all this good stuff, but still it shouldn't be too random. It still has to have some more of sensibility to where those lights being put. So on the upper and bottom part it's just more or less random, but still it's, you can imagine there may be some rooms that have either, glass and you can see the light inside a room, or it's just some, technical lighting on the exterior of the station. So for this one, for the central piece, I finally make sure we have docks, different sizes. So we decided not gonna go with the one that we see in the actual game, that they're all the same, and to be honest, do not really look that very interesting, especially with those cross-like shapes that support them. So I've decided for now deviate from this particular design. Maybe I will change it back, I don't know. It's all procedurally made, so we can, adjust on the fly, basically. And it kind of reminds me the Star Destroyer, rear end from Star Wars, because of the shape I ended up with. But I hope eventually with the proper texturing we'll get the the proper look. So we do have a dock lighting as well. I just scattered the points within every dock. For the most part, this is it. I mean, I only mainly worked on the overall shape and lighting. So I ended up with something that I'm more or less happy with. And from this point forward, I would say, okay, for example, the general shape is done. Then we can move on to the next step and, modeling next section, next module. And as soon as all the modules done, then we can proceed to refining those, adding more details to make sure it's... Well, now it's gradually, moving towards something that is more or less realistic looking, rather than the one that we have in like 2003 video game. So in terms of reference, even if I set this, for example, as a visual goal to where I want to, eventually end up with, so far we're more or less close to this kind of type of thing. So it still looks a bit CG. Well, not a bit, it's actually look very CG, but still much more realistic than this one, right? So that's why I don't want to spend too much time on doing a lot of work on just one thing, then to realize that, hey, actually I have to do this whole thing for everything then. But since I do it gradually, a little bit there, and eventually it will end up where I want it. So I also changed the scale of the residential block. So actually now we can consider that those windows are actually more or less human scale. So once again, it's much more large than we had in the original game, but I assume that the original game has a lot of limitation geometry-wise, so we couldn't get the spaceships and space station to scale. Even the planets in the game are fairly small. So you have a docking ring, for God's sake, that is the size of like 1/8 of the whole planet, and your ship is like barely going through the ring. So I think we can experiment with the scale a bit to sell up the actual size. So, well, this one is as well a good example. Maybe it's far more larger than we have, but still, having different, sizes will help a lot when we start adding ships. Because in the original cutscene, there is only like 4 ships, and that doesn't really, sell the fact that it is a station where people live. And so it's like, even though it's a outer world station, as far as I remember, Freeport 7 was in the outer outer systems, I still would like to make it more lived in kind of thing. So a lot of stuff going on around the station. It's not just, in the middle of nowhere. It's a spaceport, in between different systems where people go through. Some people live at. So the same trick I used on the dome, that's just small lights that maybe I ended up with too many of them, and now it feels like it's a huge station. So in the end, I might ended up changing them, but then again, it's fairly easily done. So I think it will be, well, it will depend on overall look. I think this looks much more cinematic with the amount of lights and the scale of lights than before. So we'll see. Also, I redid, done some work on the, so-called water tanks, although it could be anything in there. I don't know, methane, hydrogen, I don't know. But the idea was that in the original game, once again, because of the, limitations, they just went with whatever that was, like a cylinder with some sections. So we started with the same design, but then I thought, like, given the scale, that's a huge thing. So to hold this stuff through different systems is probably, not very easily done. So I ended up thinking, like, okay, what if there was just the sections that you fill with the smaller, packages or smaller containers? So the thing that I ended up with, let's just actually dive into the software itself and actually go to the water tank, so-called water tank thing. So I think like those sections could be, first of all, the modular system is one of the, I think, go-to ideas about the whole station, that the modules should be interchangeable. So since this station is in the middle of nowhere, it relies only on the stuff that is being delivered to. So I think having different sections that, for example, okay, one of the tank is empty, and by tank I presume like this, in this current design at least, like those guys, those trapezoid looking, extruded polygons, like the smaller tanks that are actually being, interchanged with every delivery of whatever material is going in there. So instead of like holding this whole thing, the train or the freighter or whatever spaceship is, tasked with delivering those goods, Actually, I'm gonna hold only like small amount of those sections. And then, I don't know, workers or some bots will replace them, like the cartridges, and that's it. So for now, I ended up with this shape. Not really sure whether it's gonna be like that, or maybe eventually I'll add more details to it. I mean, I probably will. It's only the matter of whether I use the textures to do that, or the actual, you know, polygons, so we'll see. In terms of scale, once again, I actually place humans somewhere in this scene. Can you find him? Probably not, because it's super small. But yeah, so this is the actual scale. This is the window of the residential block. So I thought this, if this is a, you know, a station in the middle of nowhere, probably the residential area is not very, you know, luxury. So they have small apartments, like studio apartments with only one window, and we have a lot of people living here probably. A lot of people. Actually, it's a huge station now when I'm looking at it. It's not some like port, it's freaking megapolis. I don't know. Well, we can actually count those things because I have a group for all windows and we can assume how many people lived in there. Too much, you know, or I'm sorry for sight. My lack of practice got a better of me. Maybe it would be great to add technical lights or yeah, G-Flame, exactly. I mean, eventually we'll end up with because for now I use just the procedural method of placing all the lighting. Well, apart from the actual star. So once I'm happy with the more or less the layout that we have, an overall shape, will probably start adding details. One of those would be those, you know, technical lights. Maybe within the well, you can see here the some procedurally made, well, handmade but procedurally placed panels. I could, whoa, we went inside. You're not supposed to see that. I will add lighting to them, so when they're being scattered on the geometry, we'll have the actual, you know, semi-procedural setup in that regard. But yeah, if we're talking about some, you know, technical lights on the bottom of the station or in between sections, sure. Okay, let me, oh yeah, one more thing. Like Columba used to say, just one more thing. I actually end up, well, now you see all the lights that are artificially placed here. I need to probably make them invisible, although they're, yeah, they'll be disappearing anyway. So for now, if you remember the cutscene, this one, all the ships, well, we discussed it before in the previous episode, that all the ships are just conveniently spawned behind the station, so that they could get away with, you know, not animating the docking door. And they just, you know, spawn there and camera reveal that they, you know, fly from behind the station. Which is a bit weird to me. Since I guess those fighters was just hanging around behind the station, and then when the freighter finally departed, they say, hey, we might as well, you know, escort you out of the system. So I think I will go, you know, with much more interesting concept. And oh shit, we were actually rendering this whole time. That explains the delay. So yeah, I'm gonna go a bit further, and I edit. For now, it's you know, not very epic, for the lack of the better word, thing. But yeah, so now we have a control of, you know, the motion of the dock. I think I put it somewhere. Oh no, not this one. Actually, this one. Yeah. We need to remove this one because it confuses me now. We'll put the control dock here, and I'll probably just promote the parameter. Yeah, so eventually we'll open the door and we animate that. And for now, there's nothing there, obviously, because it's just, you know, wasn't meant to be seen inside. But I think it will be nice to make 1 or 2 docks actually opening up, and either the freighter or the escort, fighters would actually flew out of. And we even can make a setup, the separate setup for the scene when the dock is open and the fighters are, disengaging from the station. So we can put a camera inside, and as soon as the dock door starts opening, it's been used in a lot of cinematics and movies that I've seen. So that as soon as the dock door starts opening, we switch to the camera from the inside, and you will see like the emergency lighting. Usually it's like very, reddish kind of thing, and not very strong lighting. And then because of the door is opening, maybe we see some, an environment light that is much more brighter compared to the inside of the station. So that's just a little thing that I thought would be nice to have in the cinematic. And for now, this is like the default setting that I ended up with, the control of the door. I'm not really sure whether I'm gonna do it for all the doors or just a couple. So, and probably the interior will be like a separate model that I'll be able to toggle off and on depending on the shot, so that we don't need like extra geometry while we're rendering. So yeah, this is like little extra thing that I probably shouldn't be doing or focusing on at the current state, but I really want to do it, so that's what I ended up with, something like this. As you can see, the whole thing is pretty much just a procedurally, compiled mess, well, controlled mess of extrusions with the help of my asset that I made, fairly recently. I think I showed in a previous episode some of this, but this time I decided to split the front section and the edges so that I have more control over how, detailed this thing is. So, for example, if we go, let me find this particular one. So this is the output for the lights. We need to kind of carefully place them elsewhere, to be honest, but I think I can move it here for now. Yeah, so this is the very basic shape. Then I'll just split the one that I do need to subdivide, and then the others that I don't. So for this particular, oh no, actually it's even earlier than this. So first I split the ones that are from top and the bottom, the extruded one, so we have more control over the amount of small polygon being extruded, and the same thing for the for the frontal part. So this one is only the sides. So there you go. It only works with the polygons that have, 4 and less sides. Well, basically, triangles and quads. If I really wanted, I could have divided this section as well. But to be honest, when the actual docks are being placed here, you won't be able to see that it lacks details. And we probably will never be focusing on this particular part, so I don't think it would be necessary to do that. And the other one is actual exterior. So I'm not really sure how, logically that looks. Granted, I will probably add slightly, more details to this. Because so far it's, especially when you focus in too much on it, it looks fairly simple. I mean, yeah, it's, a mess of the shapes, but it's still, those shapes are rather simplistic. So probably this particular issue would be better addressed with the help of textures and small bumps and displacements, but maybe I'll ended up scattering some more different panels here and there so it wouldn't look too simple, especially when we merge the whole thing together. Here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and we still have the, it went all dark because of the attribute of the color. Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, the overall shape is kind of similar, I think. I mean, that depends how much of the detail, well, the silhouette we have to retain from the original game. Whether it looks, I mean, I'm still not sure whether I like this shape. I'm definitely not very, you know, fond of. It looks weird, to be honest. Even though I ended up with, you know, some version of it, I still prefer not to go too large for this section. Well, I kept it because it was an original, so I didn't want to change it that much. So the idea is that the people who played the game would definitely recognize the overall shape, but doesn't necessarily be upset that, hey, you changed too much. Although maybe nobody will. Maybe nobody cares about this particular cinematic, so what do I know? So for now, I kind of cut away with making it less, you know, detailed in terms of the shape. So it wouldn't, yeah, like the AXM noticed just now, it shouldn't be like a plaything from the sex shop, right? It should be fairly thought out shape for the exterior of the station. I mean, how many thoughts were put in this particular design? I don't know. We'll probably never know. But I think we need to make sure that it doesn't really look like a giant dick, right? It's not Deep Space 69 cinematic. It's a Freelancer cinematic, so it should, you know, be self-aware a bit. Okay, so, and for the next part, oh, the actual docs, yeah. So, let me quickly, yeah, so this is fairly easily done. Once again, since it's all procedural, we can probably, I didn't check it that much, but we can probably get away with changing the amount of, you know, columns. So I can go with 32, and it automatically adjusts it. Granted, for some reason it recalculates the whole shape of base, which is weird because it shouldn't. Oh no, it should. It definitely should, because we use the shape of the docks to actually carve out the space inside the docks. So definitely then it changes the total amount of polygons, and that's why the asset recalculates the surface. So it's correct. Yeah, I tricked myself. But yeah, we can go with 12. I don't know why would I, but we can. It looks too low poly, so I'll probably end, you know, switch back to 24. I think it's good in terms of it's not super round, but it's not very square-ish. And then the simple thing was the dock doors. They're fairly simplistic, actually. You can even see those are not high detail doors. It's basically the circle with the bevel on it, split it in the middle. But I think it gets job done for the most part. So I think for the majority of the station base shape, that should suffice. So yeah, but I guess for now I will pause on this particular module and focus more either on, well, definitely on the domes, water tanks, and finally spacewalk, or rather space bridge. I don't know how to call it. But I probably won't be doing the same thing that it's here, which is just, you know, is it square? I think so. Yeah, well, definitely a square shape. So like cube that extruded to the side, I think is, once again, due to the limitations of the time. But in my head, I'm thinking a bit more about something that we saw in, I don't know, the only thing that comes to mind is Aliens Colonial Marines. Remember the E3 demo when you start on the this space corridor that it connects between the ship and the station, and then it like blows up and deforms or something like that. So as far as I remember, it was more of a hexagonal shape, obviously a little bit beveled, and with windows and the panels and all this stuff. Not sure I'm gonna use in Windows because once again the scale is huge, and those are supposed to be just interchangeable modules. So let me something like this, where I hope this is not a glass, but let me see. Yeah. Maybe exactly like those ones. So you have the frame exterior, and then you can actually see that it's probably a modular structure. So if this thing goes out of order and blows up for some reason, then later you can just replace it with a similar one, and that's it. And then later, after that is done, I can proceed with putting, custom details that are not, for some reason, maybe with the lack of my professionalism, skills, or whatever, I wouldn't be able to do procedural logic behind placing them. So I ended up just, doing them by hand. XM, are you talking about this shape or what? What exactly being implemented? I mean, I think they went for it just because they couldn't imagine any other shape. I don't know why, but it seems if you look at all the design in Freelancer, that wasn't particularly famous for its variety in terms of station design. Because it was like 6 different modules and then just iterations of changing the location, changing the amount of those modules being used in the actual station design. So you could see, for example, this one is Freeport 7. In the game you can probably find Freeport 5, and it has like slightly less, this lightsaber handle shape building. Or it's the same building but in a different place, or it doesn't have one of the domes or something like that. So, I mean, once again, this could be easily replaced. I even can show you right away, since we're doing the procedural thingy. Central. So I'll just go there to the bottom. Okay, I'll just create a copy just in case if I messed up. I could mess up. I'm a human. That's okay. So, and we'll just go and we just change the actual thing here. All right. So if I wanted, I could have just, slided those one in like this. Maybe this one as well. All right. Now. Okay. Let's just see, but it should work. I mean, I hope it will work, but you never know. All right. Well, there you go. We have a new shape. Is it a better shape than before? I don't know. You tell me. But it's already... Let me switch this one. So it's... It still looks like a, toy from the sex shop, but I don't know. Actually looks like a chess figure. I don't know. Like a pawn with antenna on top of it. But you got the point. We can iterate endlessly with the amount of the shapes that I can come up with. I will probably change it to something more fancy, granted. We can add another disk, probably. Let me quickly look at this. So, for example, if I decided to go whoop and do something like this, maybe I need to... so I need to scale it X to... Yeah, right, alright. And maybe those ones as well. Alright. Okay, and now we'll take a look. Well, there you go. I mean, it still looks weird. No matter the shape, it does look a bit weird. Now it lacks the presence that was there before. But then again, I mean, I'll probably think about it after the stream. So what I could probably put in there, so it look presentable and not very simplistic. Maybe I'll add the detail on top as well. The top is much, you know, you can still split up into simple shapes because it was actually based on the simple shapes. But I think the top is more, oops, not this one. The top is more recognizable than the bottom, I would say. Although I remember within the game there were stations that only had like this part and not the top and the bottom. Or they have the top part at the bottom and vice versa. So, I mean, once again, it was very low budget variety, let's just put it that way. So, but that's why I enjoy, you know, working in Houdini, because I could change the shape on the fly and it will update with all the asset work that's being put on top of it. But the actual base I'm okay with, I think. So the only left to do here is start to refine it, add more detail and so on and so forth. I'm actually surprised that I'm not getting any notification. Oh shit. Getting any... Oh, there you go. Never mind. But I'll just test it just in case. Maybe the YouTube doesn't work again. Mind? Oh.
Ever since I...
Oh, Jesus Christ, it's very complicated. Let's just test it. Yep. YouTube wasn't working. I do apologize for anybody who was watching from YouTube. For some reason it doesn't work. I mean, I had this issue before. I'm not sure why I'm surprised. But let me check whether that will work or not. It doesn't seem to work, does it? Yeah, I think that the chat was updated recently, so now I have no idea how to connect to the... Okay, alright, let's give it another shot. Okay, now it's working. Alright, well, I wish I knew that beforehand, but I guess not much I can do. I'll just keep that in mind for the next one. So yeah, overall, I think it's a fairly good progress, if I say so myself. The thing that I'm not really happy at the moment would probably be, well, obviously lack of the spacewalk between the modules. The second thing are the water tanks or supply tanks, because they're really out of scale, I think. considering that we now have the, you know, human and against the window of the residential block. And it seems huge compared to those tanks. So I'm not really sure even if the, well, I think the tank will fit the big docking bay, but I'll probably leave them until I start working on the freighter. So later when we actually finish with the scale for the freighter, we could adjust the size of the tanks so that the freighter could actually hold those tanks across the system or something like that. Another thing that was, well, I was told mainly by my acquaintance and colleague that it would be nice to have more details inside of the dome. So, for example, can we? Yeah, this camera is not a really good one, so I'll just rotate it a bit so that we can see it from the top. And I'll hit render, and I'll talk to you while this thing is slowly charges up to engage warp drive called renderment 23. So the issue with the dome is that in the initial, I'll just call it concept, we don't see much. We see like some vague shapes of probably trees. I can only assume those are trees. Although once again we have dome not on the surface on a planet but in space. So there is no way to generate gravity properly, so I have no idea how that will work out. I'm not physics expert, so but for now we're just repeating whatever we have here. And the issue with that is, even though I place something in there, we don't have the means of seeing that properly. Well, I did place before the lights that are supposed to be like park lights. For example, there's a park under the dome, and so they have lamps scattered across the park because the park has like little paths in between trees. But then again, looking at it now, I can definitely notice the difference in scale. So those lamps are huge compared to the actual size that they should be. I mean, I might as well just reduce the scale and see if that works in any way, because I have it separate. It's already fairly small, but I can go in even lower than that. And we almost not see them, actually. Can I? Oops. I'll just focus on one dome so that we can quickly estimate whether we'll see anything. Yeah, it's fairly... It's too weak to, you know, punch through the glass to have a proper refraction. Let me see if it's... intensity. Well, let's crank up the intensity to 50 and see if that helps. Yeah, we barely see the something, like little glow. So that's another problem that I'll probably have to think about. How to make sure we see something that is fairly reasonable to have under the dome in space and still not demand too much computing power to properly calculate the light penetrating the glass, bouncing off the objects, or actually going from within the dome. Yeah. So, I mean, I probably will end up just not making a lot of stuff in there because I'm not really sure I want to distract viewers with letting them see under the dome. But at this point, yeah, it's not very clear whether the glass is transparent or it's just the way that it's set up. The dome is with some carbon fiber, whatever this is. Although I'm still not sure whether I'm gonna follow the actual camera animation from the original cutscene or not, since it doesn't seem very cinematic. And I thought that it would be nice to have quite a huge parallax so that we can estimate the actual scale of the modules. And plus we'd have much more interest in motion in the frame, rather than just simply orbiting the main central station. Well, G-Flame, that's the thing. I mean, the only way you will be able to see the details, it's either I'll change the roughness of the glass or change the intensity of the lights that are scattered under the dome. Either way requires much more significant render time. So actually, well, let's give it a shot. What the hell? I mean, I'll go to the dome glass and see if we have roughness. Well, it's actually fairly low. Huh. Well, this one actually, but well, let's go for 15. I don't know, but that will help much. I'll go with that, and then we even increase the intensity to 150, because I think the lamps are super small right now. So you can barely see them. I think like now it has very high contrast between glass and the framings. Let's check if it's have similar thing on other domes as well. Yeah, it's getting too dark. I'm not sure I like it that much. I mean, you can clearly see something inside, but let me... Okay, I'll go back to 50, but then I'll make sure it's not that small. Yeah. Well, now you see them more clear. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. It's very demanding task in terms of, you know, computation. And since we'll have a lot of things to worry about. Well, not only that, I mean, I get it that having detail under a dome is nice. It will be even nicer if we had, like, you know, people walking in the paths in the park. But then again, it's a, you know, zero gravity scenario. So even though if they have magnetic boots or something, I'm not quite understand the principle on which the tree will grow in 0G. Because I'm no botanist, neither am I a physics expert, so... Well, I might as well consult somebody who's, you know, proficient in those fields, how the, you know, tree will behave in a 0G environment. Or I can try Googling that, but... The easiest solution is just leave it as a silhouetted tree shapes under the semi-transparent dome, I think. So let's try go back to 0.35 in terms of roughness. Hopefully that will... Well, I can even 40. Is this the correct refractive index for the glass? Let me check. IR glass. Da-da-da-da-da. Actually, it's supposed to be 1.4. But I think at some point I changed it because it went with having a lot of weird artifacts. But okay, let's try going 1.4. Oh wow, yeah. It definitely added a lot of weirdness. Because okay, let us decrease the roughness. And I think I will now... Oh no, actually I won't see shit. Oh well. Because I remember there was an issue with the index of refraction because it bended the surface under the dome to the point that it looked super weird. That's why I changed it to something closer to the air. Yeah, I mean, you see the lamp in a spot that you shouldn't supposed to, because it's basically almost at the top of the dome, so it's not correct. Rob, well, it's the well, I would call it a remake of the Freelancer 2003 cutscene, but with the, you know, scene being done with the modern day graphics, so to say. So we're in the middle of modeling those particular pieces. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we do have fancy outline now, since it's refracting, physically accurate, but I don't like the fact that it's bending it to the point that we see the ground in a spot that we shouldn't. All right. Okay. And I'm not sure what this is. I mean, I can only assume that this is the light penetrating the dome and then casting highlight on the ground. But then again, if I change the refraction index to the one that it was before, where is it? Oh, okay, here. To 1.1, we won't see that. Yeah. Or maybe we will. Hell, I don't remember. Shit, that's gonna take forever to make. Well, I'm not gonna remake the whole game. It's just first cutscene. So, probably a couple of months. I don't know. Since I'll do it in my free time, not full time. But okay. Yeah, I'll need to think about something to place inside, because the lamps don't really make that much sense. I mean, it would if that was a colony on the surface of the planet, and we have a dome and we have a park. Hell, if you play Survive Mars or something like that, they probably have this exact same setup. But in space, having a park with the conventional lamps, that's a bit weird. Because I would assume if you have a park in space, that would be inside this, you know, ring-like shape, so that you have the gravity to walk properly. Or, I don't know. Yeah, actually none of the reference, well, apart from this one. Even not, I'm sure whether it's a glass or just some weirdly reflective metal with a blue tint to it. Although it does look like a glass. I don't know, why would you have a glass on the exterior though? That's while we're coming back to initial design. Like, why would you have that? Well, because they probably couldn't think of anything else. So, yeah. All right. I mean, overall, it's more or less okay. We're in the ballpark at the moment in terms of... Well, I need to actually make sure that we avoid those lineups. Maybe it will take a place during the camera movement, but not on a still frame, because it looks weird. So let me change the position of the camera a bit to something more cinematic, like we used to have in the beginning, like this. Oh, actually, let me delete this. And I also made, well, we had the environment light before. I just blurred it slightly so we wouldn't see the noise in the because it's fairly low res JPEG. I couldn't find the proper HDRI for the space, especially not for the one that we're supposed to have here, like this green nebula. Probably I will end up using Nuke to generate pattern with the, you know, noise sequences, and then make the star and all this good stuff. But for the purpose of just having the environment light, I will leave this one, because nobody will be able to tell whether it's the same image or not, since the contribution of the environment light is fairly low. I don't want to have it the way that we have here, that everything is lit. I think I made it clear several times that I'm really fond of this particular lighting. But then again, it's a video game. You have to get away with certain things. Otherwise, player would be like, where should I fly to? Although, if we take something like Elite Dangerous, for example, I'm surprised that I didn't have any, you know, reference from that game here. It does sort this problem easily with just the navigational lights placed near the docking rings or something like this. Actually, I did the same thing. So on the counter of every dock, I have this ring-like shape of lights scattered on the perimeter. Although not all of them are being loaded because it's too small of detail for the certain, I guess, setup of the render noise quality thing. But eventually we'll end up seeing it, especially if we're zoom in a bit closer. But I would say it's... Oh shit, I forgot to disable the... it's gonna start all over again. Oh my god. Yeah, I need to. I think we're closer to the stage that, hey, it's actually in a good spot. Let's focus on working on the actual spaceships now. So because, well, if that was in a studio, we probably would hit a milestone with it's not any more efficient to spend time on modeling and adding details to this stuff because we wouldn't be able to make the rest of the thing, right? So I think the logical way of going about it is, okay, I've made the basic shapes for majority of the modules here. The only thing left station-wise to add is the spacewalk, the space corridor. I don't know what the technical term for it. And then I'll switch to modeling the fighter, the freighter, and then after those are done, I can return to this thing in terms of like whether the scale is correct. Should I add more details to the docking ring? What's the exterior and the interior of the docking base should look like? Well, for the exterior part, I think we're fairly good to go. So I'll just need to model the interior, and I think we won't be seeing that much of it. It should only work as a good silhouette thing. Glasses to capture the energy is the solar panels. Oh, you mean the reference? Yep, might be. I mean, does look like a... Well, this particular, yeah, I'm not sure about this one, you see, because this shape is not how you would make the light panels. I mean, maybe it's to neglect the rotation if this thing rotates with the actual ring. So then again, this particular design should be discussed in terms of if we talk efficiency and making sense, that I probably lack the expertise to establish whether it makes sense a lot or not. This one, which is much more simplistic, I could go behind. For example, I know what this thing can do. This space corridor makes sense. This whole thing rotates. Great. And this whole modules have even names on top of them. So like here, this oxygen tank. Here, this is whatever this is. I don't know. This is entrance. There where ships dock. Like a helicopter for some reason. But this is amateur. So I don't want to spend too much time on focusing, like, we're not doing super hard sci-fi. You might be guessed by the concept that we picked. So I don't want to go too much into detail on thinking and spending too much time on it. So in terms of the stuff that we've done, yeah, I guess... I mean, one might argue like, hey, this whole dome base looks like a giant wheel, and I would say yes. But what else should it look like? I mean, I just, at this point, I think what would be the most interesting shape to go with, since we saw a lot of different variation of this disc-like station thing. Although, granted, it doesn't have the dome on top, it's usually the ring. Oh, we just saw, actually, the ring that connects with the base module, or for something like this here. The ring with the different modules connected between each other, and then the space bridge to the core of whatever this is. I'm not really sure what's the designation for this particular block, but could be anything. I don't know. Could be a research station. Could be... I don't know what this is. But then this is the beauty of the designing the station, that you shouldn't, I mean, you could get away with a lot of abstract stuff as long as it reads that something techy, right? So we have like wires, tubes, antennas. You're not an expert, you're not a space engineer, you don't know what it is or what it could be, but it looks cool. I mean, you probably should avoid something extreme, like this is a good example that I didn't really enjoy seeing, that is like a conveyor belt with the greenhouse like arches set up. So that doesn't make too much sense to me. But this particular junction, sure, why not? Or I don't know where this is, but it's probably reasonable, I guess. I mean, I don't have too many questions about this one, but for that one, sure, I do. So this is why I think having some details is okay. Too much probably will look a bit out of scale, especially that for our size. So I'm not gonna go with this huge, station. So we need to somewhere in between, like this one and this one in terms of scale. I think the conveyor belt structure is a mining station. Sure, but why do you need glass for? Is this really the material you should go for when you set up the tunnel for whatever this is? It's not like people or school buses being docked and there's a bring your child to work day. Hey, my father is working on conveyor belt in the mining station. I can't go inside because of the security breach, but I can at least look through the glass. Those glass, I'm not really sure as well. I remember this setup, in a shopping mall. You have a shopping mall that from within looks like an, mini city, basically. So you still have an offices, but that overlook the small square with a fountain in the middle, maybe. And then this whole building is covered with glass on top. But in a space, would it make much sense or not? I don't know. But then again, it doesn't matter because we have the same setup here, so. Yeah, rub, exactly. So, but I don't think we're gonna spend too much time on that. I mean, for now, I'm okay with this. I just need to interconnect all the modules and then see if it's the layout works. So to maybe make a test, like small resolution render of the sequence of the camera rotation and see if we can get away with, first of all, similar angle that we have in the original cutscene, like this. So the camera spawns at the angle and then slowly rotates around the station. And if that will be fairly simplistic and boring looking, then maybe I'll go with extreme things like, let me change the main camera. So, okay, we actually need to fix the near-far clip for the main camera, I guess. Oh, far clipping is too low, I don't know why. On near clip we go with 1, we don't need extra detail. So yeah, the original camera goes... Well, let's set up the orbit properly. So it's... goes like from here and slowly rotates like this or something like that. Oh, let me decrease the music a bit. But I think it's too simplistic, so it's not very cinematic like. And then when it comes to the actual animating camera thing, you should consider how much detail you have in the scene. So if I say, okay, this looks too simplistic, I'll need something more extravagant. So for example, we start with the close-up of the window from the residential area. And we'll probably need to fix near clipping to 1. So something like this. And then the camera moves out and reveals the actual station. Then we say, okay, but then we have to work on this close-up more. So we need to make sure we see something in the window, because if it's just gonna be bright light, would make too much sense now, would it? So I'll need to, but because of this close-up, we'll have really nice reveal in terms of scale. So for example, the camera could appear like this, and we have some of the ship docking at the moment, so you can instantly estimate the scale of the whole thing, right? Or I don't know, start with the dome and take a peek through the glass. This is why I think we first should establish the way that we're gonna proceed with animating the camera, whether we retain the original animation with just orbiting around the main section of the station, or we do with something fancy like and just reveal and slide. And then we're gonna probably place it inside of the dock. Actually, let me just quickly check whether we're gonna see anything or not. So let me open the dock like this, halfway through probably. And then I'm curious what we're gonna see if we put the camera inside. Because I don't think we're gonna see much. And if we don't, whether it's actually sensible to even try to accomplish something like this. Okay. Right. Yeah, that's not very comfortable to do. Yeah, so okay, so basically we're inside of the dock right now. And I don't see anything. So this is the thing. Remember when I said in the beginning that it would be nice to have the shot from within the docking bay when the doors are opening? So now when I put the camera inside, I see there's nothing there. So there's nothing to look at. And at this point, you consider maybe the layout that you have not working that well. So if I go and, well, for now we keep the main camera here, like make sure we're not rendering anything. So, for example, what if we... I know, it's actually doesn't make... Because the idea was that what if I just move this block here so that we can see something when we look through the main camera, right? But then when I look at this now, I can clearly see that this is in the way. So that wouldn't make too much sense to have it here because it would prevent ships from docking, right? So I put it back when it belongs. And then I have second thoughts about making a shot from within the docking bay. Unless we have a shot of the ship actually docking. So, for example, we have a camera from within the docking bay and we see the ship in the center coming in. That would make sense. Ship coming out? I'm not really sure. Because I don't know. Or maybe we will. That's the thing. Because we have the starlight actually is from behind, so we won't see any light play on the actual ship while it's leaving the station. So that's another thing to consider as well. So as you can see, a lot of stuff to think about. And that's why I don't want to spend too much time on adding details right now, because it might end up being useless, right? So I will never look in there or look in that direction. So I don't need to think too much about it now. I'll finish with the basic outline with the space bridges. I start modeling the ships. We'll start placing them in space around the station, some of them inside a station, then try to animate the camera. And then when we're happy with the camera animation, then say, okay, so we see this, this, and this. So that's why we need to add more details here. Maybe don't worry about that part too much, and let's switch the focus to this one. So this will be the main idea. I mean, I don't know if you can do it, but you can reflect the sun or some sort of like the sun and the reflection of the glasses as it goes to the left and reveals the whole thing. You mean if we play with the camera like this? So it goes like this. I don't know. Reflection-wise, we'll probably see something here. I can actually check that right now. So we set up look depth camera and we probably try to simulate the composition that I wanted to have in the beginning. Like something like this, maybe. The rule of thirds and all this good jazz. Well, something like this. Let's check this out. But then again, I'm probably thinking too much about how it should be too early, because I still have work to do on the general thing, and it doesn't really matter at this point. Once again, because all the stuff that I've done so far are fairly simple in terms of design and the modules and elements that went into the creating this thing. I spent more time on thinking how it should work, and to make sure when I come back to the particular thing, for example, the residential block, the amount of windows and sections, I could have just changed a couple of numbers, a couple of digits in a nodes, and we'll have the nice. Oh shit, that's super flat. Yeah, I would definitely have to work on the materials, because otherwise it's gonna be like there's no material at all. And now when I look at this angle, I can clearly see that there's too much stuff going on here. It feels like somebody put a whole bunch of sticky notes on top of the station. Giant, thick sticky notes. So it was okay from the far away, but close up, I don't really think it works in my favor. So once again, good thing to check all those things after you set up the camera, because I could have decided to, okay, I'll go with this one, spend whole time modeling this whole thing, and then I said, you know what? It takes too much time to render, so I'll go back to, zooming out and disabling maybe a lot of the details, because I don't see them anyway. But hey, we see something inside of the dome for some reason. Maybe because of the angle, actually, and we see the light hitting through the glass. But I think, well, if I zoom out, if I look at it as thumbnail, well, first of all, I would like to rotate the camera just a bit. Maybe like this. Yeah, so we have the foreground station as a silhouette only. And then this guy, it looks like a, auxiliary thing that it isn't supposed to be here. But I do like the front side of the station. Maybe door docking ring are too thick. Maybe I'll end up reducing the size of this particular element. Then again, it's fairly easy to do. Let me denoise quickly so that we can see the silhouette better. Yep, but overall, I think this is the most successful part so far. Well, apart from the lights on the dome side. Even though it looks close to what we had in the initial concept, I don't think it works that great at this point. Too much straight shapes. I guess you could do both and then compare to see which one. Yeah, I mean, I can do a lot of stuff, but at this point, for now, as I said, well, this thing I'll definitely have to fix. It's not the first time it pops up, because I don't remember having this issue before. Like, it shouldn't supposed to have this stripy thing. But this I'll definitely need to fix. It's too obvious that it's just procedural thing that shouldn't be like that. It doesn't follow any logic. It looks cool when you don't see it, so when it just lights that you see, but when you start noticing the actual shape and contour, it doesn't work. So yeah, I mean, for now it works better from afar. So let's just say we finish with LODC or LODB, And now we have to model LODA so that we have more detail on this particular thing. Yeah, I think that's that. Yeah, IXM, we have like multiple stars in the system, but at this point I disable all except one and the environment light because it does have funky combination of shadows that I don't particularly like. I mean, I can enable the light and you can see for yourself, but I think I showed it before. So if I enable the second light the second star light that we actually have here, so once again, you see in the concept, we have two very close stars that are essentially the same star. We don't really need to, go for super ultra realism here and put 3 stars, especially that we have similar lighting. I don't know why it's green, but so I put the white star and the blue star. That would make more sense. But the problem with that setup is that it has very funky situation, like here, for example, where the light from the blue star is blocked by this module, but the light from the white star doesn't. So we have this yellowish shadows that looks like some artifacts. And that's the thing I don't really like, to be honest. So that's why I disable it for now, because it doesn't look like space anymore for some reason. Maybe because we're used to having single light source. So when for example, I completely disabled blue star this time, and we only left with yeah. So now we have even the green light here because of the refraction that goes from the dome. But you can see when having one distant light source is playing much better than multiple. Yeah. To be honest, I preferred the setup with just one blue star and that's it. So I enable it and disable the white one. But then again, we'll probably ended up moving them around quite a bit after we finish with the placing all the modules and ships in position and trying to animate the camera. Yeah, I think once again that having slightly interesting lighting from within docking bay would help. I'm not gonna do Star Wars all white kind of thing, because that will be too much trouble and bringing too much attention to this dock. And I don't want that. I mean, it will be nice detail to have, but I don't want people focusing on, hey, what's inside there? But then again, when we finish with all the modeling, we'll go to the texturing bit and we'll put the numbers on the docking rings and maybe add some more details that instead of modeling, I decided to go with it just having a texture on top. Yeah, I mean, still a lot of stuff to do, but now it started looking like more or less, well, at least with a hint of realism in terms of picture quality. Still not there, but on a way there. So, yeah, I think it's fairly close. So yeah, I mean, that's it for now. If you guys have any last questions for today's report, I might as well try answering them. If not, then we're gonna conclude our session today and, gather again in a week or so. And hopefully I will be finished with the station modules and already start working on either freighter or fighter. Probably freighter because it's more of a hero of the shot. So, yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, go ahead, shoot. If not, then I'll bid you farewell and I'll go about my business, which is having tea and go to bed at this point. And I guess that once again, thank you for spending time to watch this particular report. If you watch it until the end, if you watch it live, you're amazing and awesome and all this good jazz. But if you watch this in the recording, oof, that's take a lot from a person to spend an hour of their lives to go through this particular type of video. Well, thank you very much and see you next week, I guess. Enjoy your work week. Or rest week, or holiday week, whatever week you will have. Thanks a lot and have a good day.